Today on the podcast, you'll hear my interview with Jennifer Roig-Francoli, whose coaching and approach to body and performance and time flexibility and freedom I found so inspiring. Jennifer Roig-Francoli is the Art of Freedom coach for musicians and creatives and author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make Great Music with Ease: The Secret to Smarter Practice, Confident Performance, and Living a Happier Life. She's a prize-winning violinist and Alexander Technique teacher, helping musicians and creatives online to break through pain, performance anxiety, and mindset obstacles to personal freedom and artistic success. She has a special interest in supporting women to thrive in their everyday and musical lives. As the creator of the Art of Freedom method for conscious living and masterful artistry, Jennifer combines her extensive professional experience with a lifelong love of meditation and perennial wisdom. Her unique, holistic approach to self-integration and joyful music making is based on the 5 life pillars of purpose, mind, body, spirit, and artistry, and the practice of touch-free Primal Alexander Technique. I loved this conversation. I just found that her concepts and her way of speaking about them just lit me up, and I know that you will love this as well. Please enjoy the interview. Jennifer Roig-Francoli,
Yes.
welcome to Crushing Classical.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. Looking forward to it.
I am too. I always love speaking with musical entrepreneurs, with authors, with coaches, with educators, and you are all of those things as well as a performer, right? Like everything. Will you start for us, please, by just introducing yourself to the people and like take us through some of the story that brings us to like where we are now in your career?
Yes, it's always a challenge for me. Like I do so many things. How do I shorten this? So,
Well, we've got half an hour.
yes. Well, my mother says I wanted a violin when I was 2, or needed a violin apparently. So I got one when I was 4 and started with the Suzuki method. And really, I had a pretty one-track mind as a kid and teenager. I just loved this violin and wanted to be a famous international soloist and have a career. and honestly, I really didn't doubt that that would happen. And I just did what I needed to do. And I'm forever grateful to my parents for being loving musical parents who supported me and brought me to great teachers and good schools. And so I did everything that you're supposed to do to make that happen. And I did competitions and I won most of them. And so I actually did have an international solo career by the time I was 19, which is when I met my now ex-husband, but we were married 25 years. So, so I met him and we married when I was 20. And little by little, I changed direction. Actually, I say little by little, but actually right away, I changed direction and dropped my solo ambitions like from one day to the next not because I got married, but because I just had a paradigm shift in how I was looking at life and got really interested in a more spiritual way of thinking and living, and realized that that's what I'd been finding through music all along. So I just shifted that. I never dropped the violin, but I got really interested in meditation, and which I'd already been doing since I was a kid naturally. But that sort of took over my life. And unfortunately, I sort of threw the baby out with the bathwater. Didn't quit completely, but really my heart sort of went out of my art. And so I kept playing. I was performing in ensembles, orchestras. I learned the Baroque violin and was playing with Apollo's Fire in Cleveland for almost 20 years, actually. So it just changed my career completely to drop the solo idea. And then I got less and less happy over the next years. Had two wonderful children, which I was not unhappy about at all. They're great. But long story short is that I started developing neck pain, back pain, lots of physical pain, but I also was just not very happy after a while. And then I found the Alexander Technique, which was another paradigm shift in my life where all the pains and discomfort and unhappiness radically changed very, very quickly. I totally fell in love with life again, and all of my pain was gone, and I didn't understand what was going on. So I ended up doing a teacher training in the Alexander Technique. And long story short, that's now my main focus. And I have come full circle. During the pandemic, I actually made a solo violin recording and wrote a book about the whole experience, about my life and about the Alexander Technique for musicians. And now my main thing is coaching musicians to be happier. And I keep looking at your book, The Happiest Musician, which I love. I love that. And so it's about, just really being yourself. This is my work about being yourself, being happy and getting over anxiety and just loving life and being musical or whatever somebody wants to do. So that's my story.
Wow. I mean, that's an amazing story, and I'm so struck by like the multiple full paradigm shifts that you've found along the way. Like for a I know musicians who like have a spiritual practice,
Mm-hmm.
but like still continue to be completely driven by their art. I know musicians who have studied Alexander Technique, but continue, um, in the path that they were on before. And what strikes me so much about your story is how many times you've like seized the interest, the thing that is like making you interested and making you excited in the moment, and used it to as a lever to completely change what you're
Yes.
working on.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
No, not at all. It's just it's really interesting. Like not everybody does it that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I like to, a big thing for me is about how to bring your whole self to whatever you're doing. And I do try to practice what I preach. So it's about bringing the whole mind, the body, the spirit, your joy, everything that you believe you are to what you're doing. So I guess when you get curious and interested in something, you want to bring your whole self to it. So
yeah.
I try to do that myself.
I mean, it's beautiful. And like it feels scary to think about like, oh yes, well I have this burgeoning career as a touring international solo concert artist, and now I'm going to stop doing that or pivot away from that. I feel like a person might say, but where will the money come from? But where will I get that kind of like standing ovation that I have grown to crave and love?
Mhm.
Was it scary to change course in those
Honestly,
ways?
for me, no. It was the simplest, easiest thing ever. However, I have to like admit, and for me, the thing about the finances, I am so grateful that I never had that issue. When I dropped the violin, I at the same time I was getting married, and my husband was supporting us financially, and so I didn't have to worry about that.
Hmm.
And then when I found the Alexander Technique, again, I was being supported. So it was a little bit of a hurdle to convince my husband that we needed to invest in a teacher training for Alexander Technique. But the deal we made was, if we're going to pay for this training, which is 1,600 hours of training over 3 years, it's basically 4 4-hour classes a week for
Wow.
3 years. It's
Wow.
very intense to be certified as an Alexander Technique teacher. The deal was if we were going to invest in that, I had to use it when I was done. And at the time, I was not in the least interested in teaching. So I just sort of swallowed that and said, yes, yes. And thankfully, halfway through my training, I realized I was absolutely love teaching this, which I do.
Mhm.
Now, the scarier thing has been since I got divorced which was about 10 years ago now. I always forget. I'm not good with dates, even that one. But yes, so my life has been very different since I got divorced. And it took me actually a long time to get divorced because I was completely financially dependent. And so it took me many more years than it might have because I did not know how to support myself. And I was terrified to get divorced.
Yeah.
So that's where the real terror was. And finally, I did just go for it because I couldn't not do it anymore. So it just, things became just too difficult for me. So I said, okay, I don't care. I'm just going to do what I need to do. And I think it was maybe a year or two before I made that decision where I started educating myself about how to run a business for myself and how to actually support myself. But that was terrifying.
Yeah, I bet it was because like
Yeah.
money is scary and everyone needs it to survive. And I talk with so many people who are trying to build their own version of their own portfolio career, trying to figure out like where's the money going to come from, where's the artistic fulfillment going to come from,
Yes.
how can I do this thing that I'm passionate about, but actually make some money doing it. And often I say things like, well, it doesn't necessarily matter right away if the money doesn't come from the thing you are eager to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what if you just got the money taken care of somehow
Right.
with a job, with teaching, with freelancing, with like whatever it is that needs to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And then you explore the thing. And then as you, um, then you can decide later on where the monetization comes from. Like there gets to be some flexibility. And so I mentioned that just because I hear sort of a resonance with that in what you're
Yeah,
describing. Like the money has
definitely.
to get taken care of somehow.
Yes. And I feel so fortunate because I have loving parents who were able to help me and support me. And so I'm in a privileged situation. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I've always, it took me a few years to become financially independent,
Sure.
but I really decided that that was important to me. And it still is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most challenging thing for me continues to be, but it's getting easier, is to really just to trust myself and to trust the universe or God or the spirit or whatever anybody wants to call something greater than me,
Yeah.
to trust that I am going to be okay and that I can figure it out. Really to trust my brain and my body and
Mm-hmm.
my ability to figure things out. And so far, things have worked out. And the other thing that I really needed to, there's so many things I needed to educate myself on, but another one was to really just trust my intuition, I think, to go with my intuition and really well. So when I got divorced, people were telling me close to me, they were saying, oh, you should audition for an orchestra, oh, you should start teaching violin. I had people in my family who were very worried about me and they thought they knew what I needed to do, but I did not want to teach the violin. I never have really wanted to teach the violin, and I have played in lots of orchestras and I never really wanted to play in an orchestra. So I'm like, yes, I could make money that way, but I really want to do this other thing, which people thought was crazy. So just trusting, and going with my gut and lots of education, educating myself in many different ways. Yeah. So I think those are the main things I needed to do for myself.
I love that. And like it also rhymes with everything you've been describing so far of, here I am doing this thing, but now I'm interested in this. So I'm going to put my whole self over here.
Yeah.
What do you, now I'm going to apply my whole self to the idea of I need to support myself. How do I make this happen within the things that I am actually passionate about?
Mm-hmm.
And to today's musician, where it does often feel like we have to do 100 things in order to keep the money flowing and keep ourselves satisfied and active. how do you work with people to like give, how does one give one's whole self to a project and to the art and to the artistry when children and spouses and money making activities and orchestra demands and juries, like when everything is coming at you, which it sometimes feels like is what's happening?
Yes, yes. My clients are always in the situation where I think that the most common refrain is, "I don't have enough time."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, well, the way I look at it is there is one common denominator in all of the different activities that we're engaged in, and that is the self. And so I talk about the self as our primary instrument. I play the violin, you play the oboe, our listeners play whatever instruments
Uh-huh.
they play, but I think of that as a secondary instrument. And our primary instrument is really the whole mind body self. And we have not been taught how to play that instrument. It's natural to us as babies, as young children. We don't know a different way than to bring our whole self to what we're doing. A little child plays with all they've got, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're completely into what they're doing in the moment. And also, if something attracts their attention on the other side of the room, they get up and go over there and they've completely forgotten about the thing that they were just doing. They bring their whole self to the next activity. Unfortunately, we have been domesticated or trained or civilized out of that for better or for worse. I mean, obviously, there are good things about being thoughtful adults, but we've lost a lot of that natural spontaneity of being a child. And so, actually, the work that I do, I often call it a subtraction technique, where we're actually learning how to stop doing the unnecessary things. And a lot of those are habits that create tension. So, habits of thought, how we think, which is then reflected in the body as tension. And we're
Say
not
so
aware
much
of
more
most of
about
that.
that.
I'm sorry?
Say so much more about that.
Yes, I wish we had like 10 hours. So we're all thinking creatures, right? It's just the way we are. Even if we meditate, especially if we meditate, we're aware of how much we think. And many of our thoughts, maybe most of them, are not helpful. And so the first step is to be open to learning about ourselves and observing, okay, what am I actually thinking? And how is my body reacting to that thought? So, for example, if I have the belief that I just don't have enough time to do what I want to do, and yeah, your shoulders
Mhm.
just went up and got tight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right. And so, anybody listening now, if you could think about the to-do list that never gets done, and the deadlines and the millions of things that you're just not being able to do, and then there's the guilt over not being able to give enough of yourself to your family or your students or your children or your parents. It's like we are constantly criticizing ourselves, putting ourselves down, making ourselves small. And we've actually been trained to do that without realizing it. We imitate the people around us, and our culture is all about doing that to ourselves and each other, sadly. So, first of all, we need to observe ourselves and start connecting the dots between when I think this way, this is the result I get in my body, and this is how I feel emotionally when I think this way. So if I don't like the results, well, then maybe I could experiment with thinking differently. Unfortunately, most people are not aware that they're thinking in ways that are hurting them and making them tight and eventually causing pain, performance anxiety, all kinds of stuff that we do to ourselves. We're not aware of it. So then we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and thinking the same thoughts over and over and over again.
Because the thoughts feel true.
That's
And
right.
so why would you question that?
Yes, yes, exactly. And yet, whenever you do question the thoughts, they can be true, but the opposite can be equally or more true. So if I look at something, if I look at my life right now from the perspective of I don't have time to do all the things I want to do, that is totally true. I could tell you all the things I'd like to be doing today that are not going to be happening. So it is true. But when I think that way, my neck gets tight, I don't breathe as naturally, it's more shallow, my legs are tight, my hands get tight. If I keep thinking that way, I am going to waste so much energy that I'm not even going to be able to do the things I do have time for. So if I instead think, okay, well, is it equally true that right now, in this moment, right now, I actually have time to be myself. I have time to breathe. I have time. You're getting easier right now as I'm giving you that idea. It's like, what does that feel like if you think I have time right now?
It feels loose and free in my chest.
It's nice.
Feels really comfortable to know that there is enough time.
Yeah.
I have enough time.
Yes. But the mind is going to go, but no, I don't. Like one moment later. So it's a matter of continue, like it is a practice. And I call this the primary practice. We're practicing the primary instrument of the mind body self through observation, experimenting with different ways of thinking. In the Alexander technique, we call it constructive thinking, which is not what you might see if you look up constructive thinking and online. There's a psychological concept that's not the same as what we do in Alexander technique. But basically, we're learning how to be curious. Curiosity is big key, like little children. You're learning to be curious about yourself and what's actually happening. Like, what is the reality for me right now in this present moment? So usually when you get curious about what's happening to you right now, people tend to notice niggling pains or discomfort. But like if you ask yourself, what am I feeling in my body right now? Right? That's a quick way to bring yourself back to the present. But normally people, because of how the brain is made, right? There's no judgment here. The brain is designed to notice things that could be a threat to survival. So we might notice little pains or discomfort. And it's like, oh, I'm not in balance right now. My sit bones are funny. My neck hurts a little bit. I've got this shoulder thing that's always happening. It's like all this stuff. So that's okay. But we need to train ourselves to then go past that and start being curious about what's actually fine. And it's like there is so much in our systems, like right now.
It is working just great.
Yeah, and it's just quiet.
Yeah, like my heart is pumping, my kidneys are doing whatever they're supposed to be doing, I'm breathing. Yes. Like those are happening in a completely normal and healthy manner.
That's right. And yet they're quiet, so we don't pay attention to those. Mm-hmm. And the pain and the discomfort is noisy. It's like two toddlers. One is throwing a fit, and the other one is quietly sitting in the corner coloring. Usually the one with the fit gets the attention because, for good reasons, you don't want paint all over your floor or whatever. It's like, but, as anybody listening who's a parent, it's like, or a teacher, you've got students, like, you need to pay attention with love and kindness, but then at some point you have to stop and move over and also give loving attention to the toddler who's sitting there coloring quietly, who needs your attention too. So if we do that for ourselves, it's like, oh yes, I can breathe, and oh, my kidneys are working, and well, I don't really feel much happening in my right thigh, but that's great. It's quiet. Like, thank goodness for all the parts of me that are working fine. And that's just about the body right now. But when you look at your life as a whole, very often we overlook the things that are actually lovely and easy and quiet and just simple because, oh, how am I going to pay the bills? or whatever seems to be wrong. But right now in this present moment, there's a lot that's working.
So the subtraction idea that you're talking about is more like, let's stop only paying attention to the urgent, the painful, the uncomfortable, the drama.
Yes, let's not deny it because it's important, just like the screaming toddler. We're not going to slap it and say, shut up, go away, hopefully. Right? So it's really about acknowledging reality and being open to more of reality than what first meets the eye or the first painful, uncomfortable thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also an expansive technique, right? So I said it's subtractive because once you start noticing what your habits are, like, for example, coming back to the I don't have enough time thought that so many of us have, once we notice we're thinking it, instead of trying to like get rid of it, which is not going to work because it's true. It's like, I don't have time. Right? So, but instead of continuing to think that, I get to exercise my freedom to choose my next thought, which is like a miracle. The fact that I have the free will, or at least I believe I have the free will to choose my next thought. If I don't like the effects I'm getting from thinking I don't have enough time, what happens if I instead choose to think, well, right now I do have time to breathe, to be me, to think, to choose my next thought. And so it's all about letting go of what's not working. That's the subtraction. But then choosing to experiment with something else. And constructive thinking is a very specific tool that I teach my students.
That's amazing. Like, I don't even remember what the original question was that I asked, but I feel as though, as we talked over the last 5 minutes, I feel more spacious in my own body and in my own day going forward.
That makes me so happy. I just have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's so powerful. And imagine the multitude of listeners who are getting the same result from you right now.
That's great.
Very powerful.
I can give you my other 2 magic phrases if you like.
I would love that. Thank you.
The one that we've talked about is I have time. But the first one that I usually share with my students is I am free. Now, people may immediately think, oh, but I'm not free. I have to work until 3:00 tonight, and I'm not free until next weekend or until spring break or the summer. Right? So we tend to think that we're not free. We have all these obligations and responsibilities. And yet the reality is that right now in this moment, I am free to think however I want to think or not think. I'm free to move or not move my body. I'm free to feel or not feel whatever I'm feeling emotionally. I'm free to be myself, having the exact experience of myself that I'm having right now. And to me, that's total freedom. And to know that and to feel it and experience it and practice it, that makes me happy. So, yes.
Remarkable. I suddenly like sort of flipped to an image of me driving to pick up my child from school, this trip that I have to make every day. It is a pain. It is too far away. Why isn't there a bus? Why must I spend this time doing this thing? But as I am driving, I am free to not have that resentful thought. I am free to actually like enjoy the sunshine and the heated seat underneath me.
Yes, exactly. And you're actually doing what I suggest that my students do. I call it freedom directions, where you're giving yourself new thoughts. And you start with, I am free to blank. And you just did it. I'm free to think differently. And then the other magic phrase, like tongue in cheek, call them magic phrases.
I love it.
The other one I have goes right along with what you're saying. It's, I don't have to do anything right now. And that's actually true. Even when you are driving your kids to school, you don't have to. You actually want to, or you wouldn't do it. There's part of you that wants to and part of you that doesn't. But the part of you that wants to is stronger. So you do it. And yet the other part that doesn't want to do it is still loud. So there's like this internal conflict. Right? I'm just saying that to you because you brought that up. I mean, sure, it's like such a universal thing.
No, I love it. I was actually talking with a client earlier today about like the moment before you go on stage, the moment like as the little piece before you is wrapping up and the applause is happening and it's actually about to be time to go on, and there's that like feeling of dread, even though going on stage is also a joyful experience.
Yes.
But And like, you have to, because all of these people have paid to be there and paid to see you, but also you don't.
You don't have to.
You don't. You are choosing to.
Right. And I think because we think I have to so often, and again, it's drilled into our psyche. We've been trained
Mhm,
to think this way. It's been
mhm.
modeled to us constantly since the time we were really little. Like, you have to get your shoes on, hurry up, right, when you're little.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this belief that we have to do the things that we do. But just like a little child, nobody wants to be told what to do. No, so, but we do it to ourselves as adults. Like, Jennifer, you have to pay that bill or else. So we threaten ourselves and whatever.
Mhm.
And then, if you're a good child, I was a good child. I always did what I was supposed to do. And I'm a good adult. I do what I'm supposed to do. But, but I call my work the Art of Freedom Method for conscious living and masterful artistry, because it's first about conscious living. And to me, that means realizing my freedom to choose and take back my own agency so that I get to be responsible for my choices and my actions. And that's tough because I can't blame people anymore. And
Yeah.
it's like we're so used to being in a victim mentality where it's someone else's fault or the system's fault or government's fault,
Mhm,
and it is their fault, but it's
mhm.
it's our fault, really, how we react to things.
This is amazing. It's so powerful talking with you. I've really enjoyed this conversation so much.
Thank you. Likewise.
Is there, Jennifer, is there anything that you would love to share at this point that I didn't make space for in this conversation?
Not really. I mean, of course, there are
There's
infinite other
infinite,
things.
there's a multitude of things to talk about.
Yeah, but I think the essence of the work that I do really is about um, my dad used to tell me when I was a kid, when I was nervous, I was a very, very shy child, believe it or not. I had a really hard time speaking,
Hmm.
and speaking in public was like the last thing I ever wanted to do until I started the Alexander Technique, and that miraculously shifted somehow.
Mm.
Now I love it. But whenever I was shy or having a hard time, I didn't have time performing, but speaking was hard. And my dad used to tell me, Jennifer, just be yourself. And I thought, well, that's great. I love that idea, but how in the world do I do that? And so it's been kind of a lifelong quest for me. It's like, how can I just be myself and do what I want and be happy and make other people happy? And it's like, how do you do that? So it's actually really, really, really easy. I've come to discover it's the easiest thing in the world. When you think about it, it's like, how could you be anyone else but yourself? And so just learning how to be okay with, this is me right now. I'm free. I don't have to do anything. And I have time. That's my third one, by the way. I have time and space is the third magic phrase. And so, yeah, just really embodying that and continually observing, how do my thoughts affect my mind, my body, my spirit, my emotions? And can I choose how I want to think and be in the next moment? And then everything gets easier. So, yeah, and I'll just finish up by saying that in my work, it's the Alexander Technique, but I put it into this bigger context, which includes every aspect of who I am, who you are, who my clients are in life. And I teach them very specific daily awareness etudes, what we
Hmm.
call them.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, with little movements, like really short things, so we can actually practice a system for how to observe ourselves, how to experiment, how to think and move differently, so that playing your instrument does become effortless and going on stage does become fun. You can actually enjoy yourself in the middle of a concert with a critic in the front row. Yeah, so everything just gets easier when you know how to practice these things systematically. So that's
Stunning.
what I wanted to share with you.
Stunning. Where do people find you? How do they work with you? Where do you want to send people?
So I guess the first place is usually my website, and people can just look up www.artoffreedom.me. That's .me. And I did write a book that I would love people to check out. It's on Amazon right now. It is called Make Great Music with Ease: The Secret to Smarter Practice, Confident Performance, and Living a Happier Life. So those are the main things. And Facebook, of course, I'm there most of the time to meet with people, not to just scroll in the news feed.
Right, because you don't have time for that.
Occasionally I do indulge, but I usually regret it. Thank you so much, Jenna. It was
Thank
great
you
speaking
so
with
much for
you.
this conversation. What a pleasure.
Thank you.